Good morning. The title of today's devotional commentary is The Resurrection Promise. Dead men will walk again. And today's scripture reading is John chapter 11. Now, John introduces us to the home of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus and finds them in a crisis. We read, Lazarus was sick. And his sisters had sent for Jesus, saying, Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. And no doubt Martha and Mary were certain Jesus would come quickly and heal Lazarus of his illness, and one they believed was terminal. And Jesus, however, expressed with certainty, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. John 11 and verse 5 reminds us how Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. However, his love had not spared Lazarus of his illness, nor had it moved him to leave with haste where he was residing. 2 days passed when Jesus suddenly announced to his disciples, let us go into Judea. Now, the mention of going to Judaea raised alarm with the disciples. Knowing the village of Bethany would place Jesus within the reach of his enemies who had threatened to stone him, the disciples desired to dissuade Jesus from going. Jesus announced, Lazarus is dead. And I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent you may believe, and nevertheless let us go unto him. And after a day's journey, Jesus and his disciples arrived on the outskirts of Bethany, about 15 furlongs off, or about 2 miles out. And they were met by some who informed him that Lazarus was dead and had been laid in the grave 4 days already. Martha, hearing Jesus was close by, came to him and complained, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. Nevertheless, Martha expressed faith that with God's power, Jesus could perform a miracle. Jesus answered her faith, thy brother shall rise again. Now Martha expressed her faith in the resurrection of the last day. However, Jesus encouraged her weak faith, saying, I am the resurrection and the life. And he that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? And confessing her faith that Jesus is Christ, the Son of God, Martha rushed back to the house and finding Mary, whispered to her secretly, the Master is come and calleth for thee. Mary immediately rushed out of the house and coming to Jesus was overcome with sorrow and through tears said to Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. Moved by the tears and sorrow of those who wept, Jesus asked, where have you laid him? And he wept. Martha protested when Jesus commanded the removal of the stone that sealed the cave where Lazarus was entombed, saying, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. And Jesus lovingly rebuked Martha, saying, said I not unto thee that if thou wouldst believe, thou shouldst see the glory of God? Lifted up his eyes to heaven, Jesus prayed, and with a loud voice cried, Lazarus, come forth. Miraculously, Lazarus came from the tomb. His hands and feet were bound with grave clothes, and his face bound with a napkin. Jesus then said to the people, loose him and let him go. Looking back, the Apostle John realizes that raising Lazarus from the dead after he had been dead for 4 days was the zenith of Jesus' miracles and gave cause for many Jews to believe he was Christ, the Son of God. For his enemies, the miracle was intolerable, and they determined that Jesus must be put to death, or else their power and position among the people would be lost. Jesus, knowing the hearts of his enemies were set against him, and knowing his appointment with the cross as the Passover lamb was at hand, withdrew from Jerusalem until it was time for him to boldly and publicly present himself as the Christ, the Son of David, and heir to the throne of Israel. I close reminding all believers that God has appointed a day when Christ will return. And on that day, The Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, and the dead in Christ shall rise. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17. I close with a question. Are you ready for his coming? God bless.